I think there's a few things. I think, in terms of the ways in which, it a concept that gets sort of talked about a lot today is the idea of the post-human, which particular in sort of the environmental context sort of refers to the idea of, no longer thinking of humanity as the center of things, or if you think back to, how we used to have the great chain of being that had humanity at the top, animals below them, nature below that. One of the things that the post-human does is get us to think about ourselves not as above or separate from everything else, but on sort of an equal playing field. That, the human, the animal, the environment, we are all sort of part of a system, for lack of a better term, or an earth might be a better way to talk about it, particularly from the environmental perspective, and kind of thinking about the ways in which that we are part of that globe, part of that earth, rather than something sort of above it, and how that might change our sense of responsibility for the things around us. I think that's one very recent example of many of the ways in which that the zombie, I think, makes us think about ourselves. Because ultimately the difference between us and the zombie is pretty slim. That we are all, whether it's being spread through a bite, whether it's being spread through, as in the 28 Days Later franchise, blood, we're all just as vulnerable as anyone else. And sort of maybe thinking about how that might change our sense of ourselves in relationship to others, I think is something that the zombie forces us to ponder that we should ponder.